Okay, do you mind if we start? Okay, I'm
Yeah,
assuming that.
go ahead. That's fine.
Okay, great. All right, so I guess we'll just. Oh, there goes Pierre. Cool.
Hey.
Hey,
All right, good. We literally were just about to start, so that's good. Oh, and Zach just got here too. Great. All right, so we're just gonna start with a prayer, guys. Does anyone want to volunteer for that?
I'll say it.
If you're up. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Our Father in heaven, we're so grateful to be able to come together as a group. Please bless us with your spirit that we can discuss the things which are pertinent, that we can gain a better understanding and be able to take it into our lives and apply it. We're thankful for this class and the opportunity that we get to pursue our education and to gain new skills and new skills that we can take into our careers and into our callings and into our life. And we say these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. All right, awesome. Thanks for that, Pierre. After we've done that, I just want to quickly summarize the case really fast. So basically, Stephen Connor is the director for research at a New York investment firm called Rubin, Stern and Hertz, or RSH. And he's in the situation that his top semiconductor analyst, Peter Thompson, just packed and left, basically. Kind of in the middle of an important time because they were looking to make some sort of deal with this other company called PowerChip, and Peter was kind of heading that up, and the deal's supposed to be made in a couple of weeks here. So now that Peter's left, now that Peter is left, Stephen is left with having to find a replacement for Peter unless he decides to hire Rena, who is his junior analyst who he convinced to stay on. Peter comes up with, I believe, other than Rena, 4 other candidates, David, Gerald, Seth, and Sonia. Seth did not come by the means of this headhunter, Craig, but the rest of them came through this headhunter, Craig, and he had the opportunity to interview each of them once and then have second interviews with them in which they interacted with the company and the company was able to give impressions of them. In each one of those meetings, Peter kind of gave his own thoughts of quirks or differences in either in regards to Peter and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of forgot to mention that when he met with that recruiter, he kind of had a big discussion about what he was looking for, what were the good qualities Peter had, what were the bad qualities that Peter had, and kind of what he was looking for in this next person to take Peter's spot. So I guess that kind of summarizes the case. Unless anyone else has anything to add there. Okay. So what we're supposed to do right now is to discuss the pros and cons in great depth for all the candidates. So does anyone want to start with Rena?
I can do it. I think with Rena, there's quite a few things. Like I would say the pro is that she is very knowledgeable. She started with a reputable company. It was a smaller company, but the cons, I would say she knows her stuff. She's been a junior underneath the guy that left, Peter, right? Peter. She was a junior underneath him for at least 3 years, where she knows the business. She's pretty competent. I think the cons would be that Steven feels that she doesn't think for herself. She's not as assertive as he would like her to be, and she doesn't speak up as much, and he's not sure if she is the kind of material to take on that job. And I think the boss also feels the same way for some reason. If anybody else wants to add anything, I'm just giving just the general gist of what I picked up.
Yeah, I got that feeling that she was, I don't think the word exactly used, but timid would be the way I described her. And it looked like when she was, because we kind of had that thought kind of bubble whenever they italicized it. It was kind of showing the inner thoughts. She looked like she was disappointed that she would have that she was, she saw the other potential candidates that Stephen was looking at it, not particularly, but when he told her that there was these other potential candidates, she was a little bit disappointed, as in she would have liked the position that he was offering her and to stay there permanently. But I think those are some of the what
I said. It's reasonable, right? I think so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, that timidness was definitely showing on her. At least that's what I got from mostly out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add on Rena? Okay, so we'll move on to Sonia. Does anyone want to cover Sonia here?
I can do it.
All right, great.
So, Sonia, again, she's very knowledgeable. She has a good network. What they said, she was very, her clients liked her a lot. She was good with them. She worked, she did most of the work herself. So she was a hard worker. She knew what she was doing, and she didn't have a support staff. So she relied on herself. So she knew all the stuff, and she didn't have to have people feeding her information constantly. But cons were she had 2 kids. She wasn't able to travel. They did say that she just didn't travel. She would have clients come to her. But apparently you get the impression that they liked her enough that they were willing to handle it that way instead of the way that was traditional for the people to come to them. So
I think she also would prefer to work from home.
Yeah.
From home, not even at the office, in her area. She'd rather work from home.
Which was interesting that she said that, because she made a comment about, are we working with teams? Is there going to be somebody there to get my team going? But she wanted to work from home.
Yeah, that was going to be my point towards a pro. Like she seems like, despite her limited ability and her deficiency, she wanted to learn and grow. And if there was things that she could be taught, it seemed like she wanted to add it to her toolbox.
Yeah, it's definitely a good way of putting her. Yeah, I would definitely worry about that part where she has, it looks like she's been making it work with the other job of having 2 kids and everything else. But especially since this job is going to require more of her, it's bigger, and then especially because that deal with Power Chip is coming in, it looks like a lot of her attention is going to be needed off the back. And if she needs to move with those 2 kids, I mean, it might take a lot longer for her to make that move. And I think it was discussed somewhere in the case that the move itself already took time. You know what I mean? To get to know people, to make those connections, to make that relationship. So for her to have to move with those 2 kids over, I don't know that she had a husband, or if she has a husband, but if she was doing it especially by herself, that would have taken a lot longer in the process. And it looks like he needed someone ASAP to try and hit the ground running.
Right.
And now, I think Sonia was. Yeah.
I do have a question, because they said she was living in New York, but she was working out of Boston. Was the company, the big company that was looking for her, they were out of New York also, right?
Right, I believe so.
And she would be physically closer to where she lives, so that wouldn't be as big of a problem for her.
Oh,
but
right.
still but moving companies is still an issue.
Yeah, then okay, well maybe maybe I was talking to or down on it a little bit more. But yeah, so I guess that at that point she would just need to make those connections.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Catherine.
No, the fact that she was working for a smaller company, I think, was to her advantage with the kids, because she didn't have as much of demands, international clients and stuff that she had to handle, where that will be a big negative when she's coming to a big company where she will have all kinds of demands on her time from all over the world. So that's I think that was a negative for her.
Right. I'm sorry, I was quickly reading up on Sonia. Did you guys mention that I think it was required for her to travel at least once a week from the company? It looked like it, at least. That's how often Peter had traveled, that Stephen mentioned.
Yeah.
So that was definitely going to come in. She was definitely going to be needed around. Okay. Anyone else have anything to add on Sonia before we move on to another person?
I would just say that she seems like a very driven person, just because that she was in that list of II analysts for being in such a small company, that she was driven enough to work really hard to be able to be recognized for that.
Right. And I think as much as people like may look at, any person with, a family that they're, and everything like that. And on one hand, I mean, I know in some way, shape, or forms that companies look at that and they say, oh, wow, they're going to be busy, or wow, that's going to take a long time for them. It might take a little bit longer for them, or you might not be able to buy them from their time. But on the other hand, she's had these two kids the entire time she's been at the small company. You have to commend her for her prowess or her ability to be able to not only do well in her smaller company, like do very well in her smaller company, and also have these kids at the same time. It speaks that she could and probably will be able to, handle that as well, especially moving into a bigger company. She's already done before.
That does, but my husband learned this just recently, moving from a small company to Cisco. You just don't have as much control over your time when when you're moving from a small company where you're only working with like 100 or so people, and where you can look them in the eye and say, I am not going to be here. Where when you're in a huge company of thousands, they don't care. No, there's 12 teams that need this information, and they're all waiting for you. So that's that is a drawback, is moving from the small company to the big company.
No, I'd hope she'd be able to, or I hope she would understand the responsibility, the greater responsibility that's going to be put on her if she moves over. Like that has to, like, if I hope, was it Stephen outlined that, like, you may have had a little bit of time, or, have this much time at your smaller company, but understand we're going to require so much more of you at this company. And that's at least one of the requirements, because, each one of these people are going to be getting a pay raise, get to bring on their own junior analysts, and they're helping them out on all ways they can. He needs her to hit the ground running, if she were to come on.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to go over Seth next. And I'm fully capable of doing Seth here. Okay, here, I'll run through Seth really fast. So Seth was the only person that wasn't specifically recommended by the headhunter. And he's been with another company for about 15 years at this point. One of the things that was mentioned was that when he was having his second round of, I guess, not interviews, but when he was interacting with the company, someone had mentioned that that 15 years at one company, why is he leaving now all of a sudden? Why is he up and moving? I guess that was one of the questions that, that I kind of remember having when I was thinking about it as well. But from the phone call that he got about him, he seemed like a really very dedicated person. And I think that 15 years, even though that he's been with that company for that long, that speaks a lot more to his loyalty. So if he's willing to move, that's where he would stay for a long period of time. So let's see. I think one of the things that Seth didn't have was that I think he was the runner-up for that number 2 spot as a senior analyst, and he hadn't quite hit that, but he was kind of climbing up. And I think that's what he kind of mentioned to Stephen, was that, I'm on the move up right now, and that's where I'm going to kind of be. Yeah. Let's see. After that, he also seemed not competitive, but he seemed really ambitious. Like he really wanted to, he didn't just want to receive he didn't just want to see recognition, but he really wanted to move up. He really wanted to climb up that ladder. He really wanted to hit that number 2 senior analyst spot. He also seemed very interested in working with other people. Other people seemed to get good vibes from him when he was interacting with the company and say that they really liked his personality, his I think the word was congeniality. I think Steven said that he had a lot of fervor about him. So I think that those are some of the things that I saw about Seth. Does anyone have anything else to mention on him that I didn't?
I think Steven also noted that he seemed like he was a people pleaser, right?
Right.
And he said that that could be a con for him because people will take advantage of his wanting to please them. So he was kind of considering that as far as like maybe business transactions or doing business with other people. They might try to take advantage of him being very nice and very, I don't want to say, well, I guess the best way is just say it. He doesn't want them to take advantage of his good nature, I guess.
Right.
Was Seth the guy that had his own recommendations?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I thought that was kind of weird that he would bring that, but I mean, I guess it's a good thing.
Well, people bring letters of recommendations to job interviews, but not a big packet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little too much, but yeah, I thought it was kind of weird. Other than that, he seemed like a good guy, I thought, overall. I mean, I don't know. I think I would have hired him, even though that guy didn't recommend him for me. But other than the weird packet of recommendations, I thought he was a pretty good guy from what I saw anyway.
Did anyone gather how old he was? I didn't actually catch if they had mentioned the number, but he seemed like, even though he had been with that company for 15 years, he seemed like he was coming off as like a younger person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that
they said that was the first company he was hired with right out of college.
So I wonder if that's the reason why he brought the packet, is because, he'd only ever really been with one company. So he figured what probably got him into the first one, which was probably lots of recommendations, maybe a packet even, he's gonna need that kind of stuff to get into the second company. Maybe that's why he did it, because, he hadn't been really moving around as much as the other analysts.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's better to come prepared than not at all. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. So the second person that we have, does anyone want to go over Gerald?
I can do that.
All right. Great.
Gerald, it says that he was doing well in his career. He was working his way up, and then I believe it was him who transferred companies, and then he kind of dropped down. And it says that he's transferred companies in a couple times in the last 6 years or something like that. And each time it kind of hurt his rankings. And so they were curious if that would happen again with him coming to work for them in their company, if he would drop back down. The other thing is they liked how he seemed to have a knack for picking stocks, good stocks, ones that would work well. And another thing that Steven was kind of like iffy on was the fact that he had fired one of his junior analysts right there in the middle of a meeting, just because he didn't do what he wanted him to do. He just fired him right there and got rid of him. And they weren't sure if that was going to be very good for the company, just because he's going to come by himself. He's not bringing any junior analysts with him because nobody wants to work with him in his old company. So to me, that'd be just a little red flag, as maybe he's not that great of a boss, I guess, or a manager or leader.
Yeah. He was also the only person, or I believe he was, at least it was noted that he had arrived to the meeting about 15 minutes late or so, and didn't even apologize or say anything. And then I believe he was also the same person that I think he was the one that was mentioning the copiers, and that they were broken, and that was like a huge issue. You know what I mean? For him, at least.
And his first question was, "How much do you pay?"
Yeah. He had a bunch of little quirks. Now, I think his experience speaks for like bounds and bounds for what he could possibly do. But yeah, those little quirks and the fact that he was, I think he called later on to find out how he interacted. I believe it was Gerald, at least. Stephen called someone else that he knew about Gerald, and they were saying that he was pretty difficult to work with. So I think those were the quirks, or at least some of the things that he had also had a bad streak with, or hadn't appeared too good as. Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any other notes on Gerald?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he just seemed kind of prideful, I guess, and I don't know. Some of the things he did were very unprofessional. That kind of turned me away from not picking him. I mean, especially being late. I mean, I've always been taught never to be late to a meeting, unless it was some kind of emergency or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think just those things alone would make me not pick him for this position. But I mean, it seems like he knows what he's doing, but sometimes it's better to have somebody who may not be as qualified, but they're easy to work with, and that helps you to run your company better overall.
Right. Okay. Any more thoughts on Gerald before we move to the final candidate, David? Okay. So let's talk about David Hughes. Does anyone want to cover him?
Yeah, I can do it.
All right.
So I like David Hughes. We had the same last name. That was the first thing I saw in him. That was kind of cool. I'd say he probably, out of all the candidates, he's probably the oldest of the candidates. He's been with his last company for a long time, and he's trying to get away from that. He's trying to find something new, trying to find a new challenge in his profession, even though he is in his older years. I know one of the things they talked about with this analyst position, usually it's better to find a younger person because it's a really stressful and rigorous job. And that was one of the things that maybe people thought that we thought that he may not be able to take care of this position because of his age. But he seems very experienced. He knows what he's doing. Seems like a good worker overall, though. But yeah, I guess that's David.
Yeah. I think some of the things that I'll ask for their comments as well. But I think two of the things that Stephen had noticed inside of the first interview with him is that he was kind of uneasy with how the interview was going, and he was wondering whether David was interviewing him or if he was interviewing, which way it was going around, because of partially age, but just because of some of the questions that he was asking. And I think the other thing that was mentioned was right toward the end, there was a rumor about David being on vacation with his kids, and there was this huge emergency, or this huge breaking thing about the semiconductor industry, and he had refused outright to cut his vacation short because he left it to his juniors to handle, and he kind of managed it. He managed it a ways, and Stephen had definitely thought you need to be there for that kind of thing. That's the kind semiconductor analysts need to cut short whatever it is. You're on call. You're like doctors. You know what I mean? So I think that was the other thing that he noticed about David. Unfortunately, I'm better pointing out the bad qualities than the good qualities here. Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, he did say he asked him about the rumor, and David didn't really. I don't think his answer cleared it one way or the other. He was like, "Oh right. Yeah, that thing." It was my grandkids, and the problem was well in hand. He didn't say whether it was true or whether it wasn't, or it.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
I mean, he did kind of soothe it over afterwards. I mean, I still think a vacation or not, you have to show up to your job if it's that kind of thing. You know what I mean? You're all the way up there. So I'm with you there, Catherine. He did say that it did breeze over though, and that his junior analyst took care of it ultimately, and that here I'm looking it down here at the line right now. It says, "Don't forget happy clients are a big reason I got ranked as a second teamer in the semiconductor industry." So ultimately, it didn't. The staying on his vacation didn't affect his overall ranking. But I think that's the attitude. Yeah, is definitely not good. You know what I mean? His answer should have been I mean, I probably would have said, "Oh yeah, that's a rumor that never happened," or I think that's that's dishonest, but I don't think that's a good
I lost
reputation
my
to
phone.
have. Yeah, I lost my phone.
Well,
Yeah, something.
and like I said, he did kind of smooth it over and didn't confirm one way or the other. But then again, he has enough experience, maybe more than other people, to know, oh, this is you know, people are making it bigger than it is, and I know my team can handle this. You know how what you have somebody that's brand new and went, oh no, this is huge. We need you right now, and he's like, no, my team's experienced enough. And so I mean, like, he didn't say one way or the other how he handled it or how big it was, but he might have had faith because of his experience that it was going to be handled well.
Right.
So,
I saw like two other things too. I think Steven was talking to him about compensation, and it seemed like he wanted to get compensation for 2 years instead of one. That was standard. And also, when he asked him about his motivations for wanting to leave his current company, I think he was looking for a place where he could do what he wanted to. I think he was talking about that. I want to look at the stocks that I think are interesting, and that kind of makes me go, okay, well, what if they told you they need you to look at a particular thing? You want to look at what interests you and not the company. So that kind of was a red flag to me.
again, I think that has to do with his experience, not necessarily that it's going to help the company, but once you've been around that long, you're like, yeah, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
You're like, this is
I
what's
want to find
interesting.
something challenging to me. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I feel like we covered all the candidates pretty well, unless anyone else has anything to say that we didn't mention about any of them. Okay. If not, at this point, I won't. So since we've kind of discussed all the candidates and we kind of have everything laid out there, how did you guys go, like, specifically in your papers, who did you end up choosing to hire after it all?
I went after Rena.
Okay.
And
then, so yeah, who you picked and why? Sorry.
It looks like we're going to probably talk about Rena a little bit later, but I chose Rena. I didn't even see this outline, but I chose her specifically because when Steven was, talking about the nature of the company, he was talking about how it was family oriented. Most people that come there stay for their whole career. They have a good training program that he started and things like that. Well, I was kind of sitting back and I'm like, why aren't you trying to promote her? Who's mentoring her? How come you're not trying to say, okay, we're going to develop a star from within because these people are loyal to us and they stay here for their whole career just about. How come we're not looking to cultivate our own team instead of looking for somebody on the outside? I also kind of threw a little bit of what he said back at him, where he was talking about that she listens to other people's opinions instead of cultivating her own. So I kind of went about it like, okay, well, Steven, you do the same thing. Instead of doing all the work recruiting and trying to find out about these people on your own, you're looking at recruiters and listening to their opinions. You're calling people in other departments and listening to their opinions about a person without actually you finding out the information for yourself. So, I mean, it's kind of like a backhanded thing. It's like you're doing the same thing that you're accusing her of doing. So aren't you looking at it in that aspect and saying, oh, well, actually, I do that myself, Maybe we can actually work with her and try to get her to where we need her to be. And also, when you look at it, when he gave her the temporary promotion, he felt like things were chaotic. And what happened after he gave her the promotion? Things smoothed out. Things started running the way that they were supposed to. So I was looking at that, and I was like, well, actually, maybe that 3 years underneath Peter actually taught her something to where she does have the knowledge and does have the experience that she can step up and do it. You're just not giving her the opportunity or making her feel secure. And maybe that's why she's not as assertive, because she's not secure in the fact that she actually has a job. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like that. I like that. I didn't really thought about it that way. I went with someone else ultimately. I'd ended up going with Seth, but I think Rena was my close second there. But I really like the reasons that you mentioned for Rena. Yeah, if she had kind of gotten that assurance, like, all right, you're the one that needs to step up. This is your job if you own up to it, kind of thing. Instead of it was more like, okay, well, we're probably going to be looking for a replacement, but if we don't find anyone, you're the person that's going to stay here. That doesn't really give, a good, well, you need to own up to this and try and do this as if this was going to be your job. It just wasn't enough. Yeah, I like that.
I also looked at it from this aspect too. I was like, okay, well, I know the big boss is like, no, don't go with her. Get me a star and all that stuff. But how about Steven? You're the one that brought the training program in, and that's a big emphasis that you wanted in the company.
I pointed that out too.
If you backed Rena up and said, you know what, boss, I'm gonna take her up under my wing because I am over this department. So ultimately, I know the ins and outs of this department, and we will get her to star. I have that much confidence in her that she can do this job, and I will personally take her under my wing and train her how to do the job the way that we would like it done. If you vouch for her, then the boss will have less concerns.
Yeah, I agree. I like Rena too. I actually picked her. I think if you can give her a solid direction, what she needed to do, and give her a little more help, kind of like you said, I think she'd be perfect for the job overall. I don't know. I liked her a lot. I think she'd be the best.
It costs less too.
Yeah.
I leaned heavily. I picked Rena as well, but I leaned heavily on that article about hiring a star might not be the best plan because of how Rena's already got the support system, so she's got the people that it says in that article it says that it's not just that person. They realize when you move, their not ratings, but their work quality really drops off because they're not with their old support system. It's not, Rena has that, and like Pierre said, Stephen, and he has all these training programs and stuff to build people up. Use them.
And he kept saying that the company's like a family. I mean, if it's like a family, then take care of family.
Yeah.
So I chose.
I
was just say I chose somebody different than all of you guys. I chose Sonia is who I chose.
That was my second.
And I chose her just because she seemed really driven, and she seemed like somebody who was willing to learn. It's somebody that they could mold to be who they wanted to. The other guys had already had a lot of experience in big companies, and so they already knew how those companies worked, and they might try to bring that, and it might be a big clash with a different company that's just as big. Whereas she was somebody new and upcoming that they could bring in and kind of train to how they wanted to mold her. But when I said to hire her, I said to keep Rena as her junior analyst. That way, if Sonia can't make it to a meeting or something because she has to be home with her kids or she can't travel, let Rena do it. She knows what's going on. She's good enough to go. And those two, I think, would make a really good match together because they both really want to do well. They both want to drive. And what Sonia couldn't do, Rena could pick up the slack and really help her and move it along and make it work really well. That was my decision in the end. That's what I chose, and that's kind of why I chose it.
No, I like that. And then she would have the opportunity to hopefully grow under Sonia as well. And then whatever fears that Stephen has about Sonia entering into a bigger business, that's where Rena can kind of cover up that, that specific place where Sonia's lacking. So I like that connection. That was really good. I didn't really give much thought to how Rena would or where Rena would be after he hired another person.
Yeah, I just thought that just because some of the other guys, they had junior analysts that they were going to bring with them, and Sonia didn't have anybody. I mean, she didn't have her own junior helper. or her own assistant. There was one person for all these people, so she wasn't going to bring them with her. And at the same time in the interview, Sonia asked if there were other manager women or somebody that she could kind of work with and learn from and be able to build up to being that great senior analyst. And I just figured, why not take two women that really want to do well, put them together and make them a team, and they'd be able to kind of push each other up and be able to be the star that they want.
All right. No, I like that. I like that idea a lot. I mean, I would hope, and it doesn't seem like Rena, according to what we read about her. I just hope she wouldn't be bitter or not happy toward the company, because she didn't end up getting to keep that job. I guess that would be the only thing that I would hope that Rena wouldn't end up doing or perceiving the company as someone that didn't give her the chance. You know what I mean? So, but it didn't seem like Rena to act that way. So I'm pretty sure they were safe in that regard. Anyone else have anything to say about that? Because then I'll just go over my choice. Okay, so I ended up picking Seth. After hearing you guys talk about yours, I actually feel a little bit less sure about it. But the reason why I ended up choosing Seth overall was that I felt like he I felt like he would be a really good bridge for the deal that was coming in with PowerJip. He said he knew contacts. He said he would be able to do it, and that seemed like the biggest thing that Steven wanted to make sure one of the biggest things that Steven wanted to cover and make sure it was going to be all together when he hired this new person. I guess the other thing was that he seemed to get along with people when he first got there. He seemed to do he seemed to get good impressions off. I mean, and I think the impression of he's been with them a long time. He only has this one experience. Why is he leaving now? You know what I mean? As I think I mentioned it earlier, it's kind of backhanded. You can say, oh, he's been with the company 15 years. He doesn't know anything different. That speaks a lot more to the whole mass of senior analysts that have been moving around this year. Craig, the recruiter, had said that there was massive amounts of people that were moving. You know what I mean? And this is probably the reason why he's moving. It's just the climate or the environment that for people to move. The chances are, if one of these guys moves over, you know what I mean? I feel like the chances of Seth moving on after he was chosen was very, very small in comparison to other to the other candidates.
That was insightful. I didn't even think about that everybody was already moving, and he saw that as an opportunity for him, and that's smart.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was who was it? I can't remember which candidate it was. I think it was, I want to say Gerald or David, that they had just finished moving, not even 2 or 3 years before that, or a couple, or maybe I'm not right about that, but I believe that it was someone else that had just moved recently, even before that. So that's why I kind of looked at it and said, oh, okay, well, they're obviously looking for someone that's going to stay there for the long haul. That's what they want and that's what they need. So I guess the only thing that Seth doesn't have at this point is that he, hopefully we'll be able to kind of get those connections, just like Rena would have those connections eventually. It looked like he was able to make them, but yeah, his two flaws were definitely he was kind of a people pleaser, like Pierre mentioned, and then the other thing is that he hadn't ranked. He was on the verge of being a star, but he doesn't quite a star. So I think that would be a thing that Steven would really have to convince his boss about. Saying, I have this person. He looks like he's on the verge, but he's not quite there yet. You know what I mean? That's not a guarantee for perfection or a guarantee for fit. But I felt like out of all of those flaws that he had, I feel like he had a lot of good qualities about him. He seemed, very driven. He seemed to have that, that desire to really do well, and it not just a desire to do well for himself, kind of like Peter had. You know what I mean? He turned it into a competition and turned it into he ended up driving people away after a while. It looked like Seth kind of didn't have that and had the ambition to do well with the company rather than just using the company as a tool just to do better for himself. So that's kind of why I ended up choosing Seth after everything. Any last thoughts before we move on to the next little part that we need to get discussing? Okay, so I'm gonna go over what the salaries would be for these people, and this is, we're going over salaries real quick just to kind of see if this would impact or change your decision about who you would hire. So Rena's current salary is about $0.3 million. And her salary, including a raise after she stayed at RSH, would stay about the same. She would be at that 0.3 million. So they wouldn't have to pay Rena any more than her current salary. So that would just save the company money in general. For Sonia, her current salary was $0.4 million. And if she moved over to RSH, she would get a bump of 0.3 million. So she would be at 0.7 million. She would be getting paid twice as much as Rena would be. Seth was currently at 0.7 million. And if he moved to RSH, he would be getting $1 million, which is about 3 times more than what they would have to pay in order to get Rena. Or just to stay with Rena. The reason why I keep on going back to it is because Rena's kind of like the cheapest one, or the cheapest option, I guess. After that, Gerald was currently getting paid $0.9 million, and if he moved to RSH, he would with a raise, he would be getting $1.2 million, which is 4 times the amount of what Rena was making. And then last but not least, David was making $1.3 million at his current job and would get $1.5 million if he moved over to RSH, including that raise, which is 5 times more than Rena. So given those numbers, does anyone feel like they would change their mind about who they would hire and why?
Nope.
Nope.
I guess the only people that would probably change their mind are maybe Zach and myself. Zach, do you have any? Are you still with Sonia here?
I'd say yes, just because I don't know, you're still not paying a lot, but you're investing in a possible great future. But you're not having to pay as much as you are with some of the other guys. And with the other guys, I mean, you are paying for experience. That's what you're paying for. And that's why they're worth so much. But I'd say just to stick with it, because they could get 2 great people, Sonia and Rena, and they'd both work great, and you're still paying the same, if not less, than some of the other guys altogether.
That's what
and you're possibly getting a good team that would work together.
That's with assuming that they would keep Rena, right?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Well, that's assuming that they do what I said, right?
Exactly.
You're an expert, right, Zach? Yeah, I mean, it feels like it. Come on.
Yeah, I am. They should listen to me. I should get paid that kind of money.
Senior analyst semiconductor, my man, right here. Okay, man, this kind of put me in a tough spot because I probably chose the most, not the most expensive route, but I'm the most expensive out of all of us. So he would, let me just go over that again. He'd be getting paid $1 million to stay with the company as opposed to Rita's $0.3 million. And I guess you're kind of paying that amount of money. And I feel like mine, as much as, I really tried to make it not sound like a chance, but there is a chance that Seth doesn't do as well as, as I kind of pictured out. I do think that the Sonia and Rena option, or just the Rena option, are better options than maybe what I picked with Seth. So I think I would change to either. I like the way Zach has put it out, and I think given Zach's conditions, I think that the Sonia and Rena would do really well together. But if it was Sonia by herself, and Rena went somewhere else, or she decided not to stay with the job anymore, I think that automatically they should keep Rena. So unless the Sonia Rena package is together, I think Rena's the top option if you can only have one of the people staying on. Okay. Any other thoughts on that before we move on? Okay, I'll just kind of read the question, even though we've kind of answered it. Should Steven give Rena a permanent offer or hire outside the company? I think the resounding option or thoughts are to give Rena the permanent offer, or to hire outside the company with Sonia and keep Rena on as a condition. Okay, so that's kind of that question. So this is the second question. Should Stephen have let Peter go in the first place?
Yes.
Now, why do you say that?
And I say that because
I second that.
Because initially Peter was all about the job. He was all about, doing what's right for the company. And then he became a totally different person once he became the man. And he only took jobs for money. He didn't really care too much about anything else. I think his motivations, when you see his motivations, sure, he was making the company a lot of money, and they felt secure with him, but I think that's a slippery slope, and that's why he ended up leaving, because he wasn't loyal to the company. He was loyal to the money. So if he's not making money, he's not interested in working for the company or interested in the work at the company. So I think that Steven, he made a gutsy move, but it was a good move just to let him walk.
Right. And even still, I think I'm in agreement with you. I think that he should have let Peter go and realize kind of like that he, because he was driving people away too, that he was starting to be a harder person to work with overall at the end of his stay there. I guess if there was maybe another way to go around it, if anything, I would maybe if he really, really wanted to keep Steven on, I would say to keep keep Peter on just to complete the power chip deal, and then maybe after that let Peter go, to just kind of solidify that deal, make sure everything went smoothly, make sure that the presentations were given properly, and then maybe let Peter go. If there was maybe a condition basis that he could have let Peter go, that's the only way I could think of maybe Steven keeping Peter for any amount of time after the time that he left.
Which I think there would be. I mean, if we think about it the way that Steven was talking about, that their contracts are like yearly, then maybe they could have just kept him one more year, and then let him go.
Well,
right.
And the way Peter announced it by just, hey, I'm leaving now, I don't think he wanted to stay. It wasn't like, hey, listen, I'm thinking about going somewhere else. I've had a lot of offers. He's like, hey, I'm out of here. Bye.
No loyalty.
5:00. I'm not coming back on Monday.
Yeah, that's something. Okay. So another question is, should Steven have talked to the recruiter about Seth?
Which recruiter?
The recruiter, the headhunter, Craig.
Yeah, Craig. Because Seth went through a different headhunter. That's why I'm just confused.
Oh yeah, should he have talked to? I'm pretty sure they're referring to Craig. Should he have talked to Craig about and asked about Seth through Craig there?
Considering how much Steven valued Craig's advice and thought Craig knew everybody in the business, I think it would have been okay to open the dialogue just so you could see what Craig thought about him. Yeah. If he had never heard of this guy before.
Yeah.
I'm thinking he wasn't even on Craig's radar because he didn't come up as an option.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of like the next part that I was going to read, that they called about, like that person called to refer Seth. And I thought the next paragraph I was going to read was, hey, Craig, what do you think about this? This is a person that I got referred about,
I did
this,
too.
this, and this. Yeah, I was like, I thought that was the natural, like, flow of things, but I was really surprised that Steven didn't do that.
I thought it was odd. I couldn't quite figure out why he wouldn't do that. I mean, is it because he's like didn't want to pay Craig a fee if he ended up hiring Seth? I couldn't figure out why he didn't ask him about it.
I thought it was interesting too. Like, how did this other recruiter know that they had an open position?
Yeah.
How did they know? Because he only talked to, and he tried to keep it discreet as possible. He only talked to Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was. I think that's another flaw of flaw in choosing Seth is that, you know, he didn't have that recommendation from the one person that he, you know, kind of put everything on. You know what I mean? You're considering this person, you know, by yourself, and the whole idea was that you'd go through Craig to make sure that this opening didn't get out into the open market. You know what I mean? I would definitely have called Craig and asked him why he wasn't on the list, if he even noticed him at all, or if there was a particular reason, because maybe Craig knew something that, you know, that Steven didn't altogether, you know what I mean, that disqualified him earlier on.
It's either that or maybe Seth wasn't in networking circles, which is a red flag for them, right? You know, they should be known.
Right.
If you want to start, it should be known anyways.
No, agreed. Any other thoughts about that?
I thought maybe the other option is, like you guys said, the other guys were already moving and Seth wasn't. And maybe, you know, he heard it, because when you're in positions like that and somebody's looking and there's a headhunter looking, word moves around inside of big companies and they can hear stuff. And maybe he just saw it as an opportunity and contacted whoever he uses and said, hey, I'm interested. Like, let him know. And he wasn't sure who he was supposed to contact, so he just contacted one and said, hey, let him know I heard about this and I'm interested. Even though he hadn't just put himself out there and said, hey, I'm looking for a change.
Let me back a little bit.
Okay. Maybe Craig thought that Seth was just going to stay with this company because he had already been there for 15 years. That could be another possible option. I mean, but ultimately we don't know. But that could be another likely thing, that he thought that Seth wouldn't have moved at all anyways. All right. The next question we have, if no one wants to say anything else, is that does the performance at one firm guarantee high performance at another firm? I think we kind of talked about this, but if we can go just kind of summarize it or go over it just a little bit.
According to that article, it was not necessarily guaranteed when you move, because you have a different support system, a different network. I mean, yeah, you still have your personal network, but it's that their numbers were, it drops off by 20% and they never actually regain. And they said they followed them for 5 years and they never got back up to their old level.
Right. No, the other thing is that, you know, every company has it. Sorry, okay, Jordan, you got it.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it's different for everybody. I mean, I think it depends on the situation. Depends on the reason why they're changing firms or whatever. I don't know, especially if maybe they only did it for the money or something, but they weren't really emotionally into the job itself. I think that would affect them. I don't know. I think it's different for everybody and for every situation.
I think if every firm was just cookie cutter and the same, maybe it could constitute over, but you're going to have different variables. You have different people with different skill sets. You have different values. The company may want to do something a little bit different as far as like their policies. So I don't think that success can continue over one to another. It's possible, but it's not always the case because of those different variables that are associated.
I agree. I mean, I see it as like, it's the same. If you have like a professional sports athlete, they change teams, does that guarantee they're going to be great? Absolutely not. There's plenty of sports athletes you can see that they're great at one team and another team's like, hey, we want them, hire them, and then they never see a minute of playtime. Everything's different, just like Pierre said. I mean, there's just so many different things that go into a job and into certain companies that you do not know how somebody's going to perform until they're there and some time has passed and they've kind of accustomed to it to see how they'll perform.
Yeah, every company has a different environment, you know what I mean? So, and it looked like, you know, he kept on emphasizing, Stephen kept on emphasizing that RSH was a huge team, a huge team effort. It was a lot of teamwork, and all this. He wouldn't be saying that if it wasn't different at other firms. Other firms were a little bit more competitive, or other firms were a little bit more this or a little bit more that. You know what I mean? As people, and then that's not guaranteed that Seth, I guess, is one of the only people that really worked with one firm only, but the rest of them have been at many different places. So it's no telling, how they're going to fit in this new atmosphere and this new teamwork reliant. It seemed like everyone was really excited about it, but there's no guarantee that there's a fit just because you're doing well at another company. That environment can be really helping prop a person up or make a person do really well. Okay, we only have 6 minutes left. The last thing we're supposed to really do here is just to discuss the types of human capital. If you guys, I guess it would probably be better. I mean, I don't know if you guys have it off the top of your heads, that'd be great. I pulled it up just to kind of help me out a little bit because I read over it, but I can't remember every single one specifically. So if we can just go over them really fast, then we'll be finished up here. So company specific human capital. Can anyone summarize that?
I'd say. Oh, Catherine, are you talking? Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was repeating the question.
Oh, I'd just say, because that was at the top of the arrow, right?
That's at the bottom. Sorry.
The bottom. So that was like, oh geez. I was just thinking of the top of the arrow. Now I got to transfer down to the bottom of the arrow.
No, it's okay. It's the top. We're going to change it. General human capital. Go ahead. Go, Zach.
I thought that was what you asked. It's just normal. It's things that can transfer easily. So somebody being personable or, oh my gosh. Just give me just 1 second.
Basically skills that you can transfer over to jobs, like you said, whether that be experience in situations, different management techniques, etc. Knowing about budgeting, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like management skills, financial skills, stuff like that.
Yeah, they kind of have everything they need. Okay. The next one was strategic human capital. Can anyone go over that just really fast? It's a really short one anyways. So here, I'll just do it really fast. This type of human capital, it's still pretty portable as far as being able to move from one place to another, and it just means that a person's able to kind of strategically maneuver inside of the market. They have skills like cutting costs. It says over here, cutting costs, driving growth, and maneuvering in the clinical market. So this kind of person is just strategic and can adapt to different environments. Industry human capital. Can anyone summarize that?
That's just industry related knowledge. So, for example, a tax person, he knows the tax code, but he doesn't know what to do when it comes to a company's financial statement or something. Or somebody who knows knows the rules to make a corporation, but they don't know how to pick stocks. I mean, there's just certain rules that according to your job that do not transfer to another place.
Right. Yeah, the example they gave was the Food and Drug Administration. Like they know that, but they don't know something as far as they don't know other industries. Yep. The next one was relationship human capital. Here, I'll just go over that one really fast. It's just the ability to kind of develop relationships with other teams, with other members, and they have general manager skills, so they can kind of manage well, and it's not necessarily industry specific, but they are personable. And then company specific human capital. Can anyone go over that one?
Really you fast. Understand the routine and the culture of your company, so you can.
That includes standard operating procedures, which are unique to those companies as well.
Right.
Yeah.
SOPs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And those aren't as portable because every company has different cultures and routines and standard operating procedures.
So I guess it doesn't really talk about the reason why they included this. I mean, I understand how it relates, of course. It's just it shows how portable a person is, and I guess if you were to relate those specific human capital attributes to each person, you would kind of be able to attribute whether they were portable or not. So if you can apply some of those to Rena, some of those to David, some of those to Seth, and so on, and you can kind of see, do they have strengths in this area? And if you were to measure all of those on a scale of maybe 1 to 5, how are they going to rate? Do they come out as portable as you thought they would? So I guess that's maybe one way to apply it there. So I guess that's the whole case. I feel like we've covered a lot. It says that we're supposed to summarize and do all of this. We only really have a minute anyways, but I feel like we went over the discussion really well. I really liked your ideas, especially the just sticking with Rena and then the Sonia Rena combination. I really hadn't thought of those, so those are really good. Are there any more comments before we close off here? All right, awesome. Thank you so much for helping out, guys. I really, this is probably my favorite group that I've had in a couple of semesters. So I really appreciate all your hard work and all of your reading and all your comments. It's really been good. So thanks. And if there's nothing else, I'll just end the broadcast.
Ready?
Sounds good.
Awesome.